All right, welcome to the explainer. Now, if you're gearing up for the Queensland bar exam, or really if you're planning to set foot in any courtroom, there's a concept you have got to get your head around. It's the art and really the science of building a case when you just don't have that smoking gun. So let me ask you this. How do you actually prove a case when there's no eyewitness, no confession? I mean, really think about it. So many cases would just fall apart if the only thing that mattered was someone saying, "Yep, I saw them do it." The reality of law, as you know, is way more complex. And that's where this essential tool comes in. And that tool is circumstantial evidence. Now, a lot of people think this is somehow a lesser form of proof. It's not at all. It's just different. And honestly, it can be an incredibly powerful way to get to the truth just by connecting the dots, by drawing those logical lines. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with why we even need inference, then we'll define circumstantial evidence and see how it stacks up against direct evidence. After that, we'll get into something called the chain of inference, see how to make it strong, and wrap up with a really crucial takeaway for your exam and beyond. All right, first up, the necessity of inference. So why do we need this stuff? Well, to put it bluntly, without it, a whole lot of perfectly valid cases would just die on the vine. You know, getting a direct witness for every single important fact, that's a luxury you rarely have in a courtroom. So inference, it's like the engine of the whole legal process. It's what lets us build a bridge from what we do know to what we can logically prove. Okay, let's move on. Section 2, defining circumstantial evidence. Pay close attention here because mastering this is absolutely fundamental for your exam and for your career. So, what is it really? At its core, circumstantial evidence is just any fact that lets a judge or jury infer that another fact, the one you're trying to prove, also exists. It's not about what someone saw directly. It's all about logical deduction. And of course, the law has some fancy Latin for this. You've got the factum probans. That's the thing you're using as evidence. Think of the bloody glove, that sketchy email, you know? Then there's the factum probandum. That's the thing you're trying to prove. The murder, the fraud, and the real art of being a barrister, it's all about connecting the two. All right, section 3. Let's talk about how this compares to direct evidence. This is a really critical distinction to get right. Direct evidence is pretty straightforward, right? A witness gets on the stand and says, "I saw person A stab person B." Simple. But, and this is a huge but, what if the witness says, "I saw person A carrying a bloody knife a few minutes later"? That is not direct evidence of the murder. It's direct evidence that he was carrying a knife, sure, but it's circumstantial evidence that he used it for the killing. You see the difference? It's a subtle but absolutely vital point. Okay, next up, section 4, the chain of inference. So how does this actually work? How do you build a case by linking one fact to the next to the next? Let's walk through an example. So, step 1, you have a fact. A witness saw blood on the accused's coat pocket. Okay? From there, you're asking the jury to take a logical leap with you. That's step 2. You ask them to infer that the blood on the pocket came from a knife that was inside it. Then, step 3, you ask for another leap. Infer that the blood on that knife came from the stabbing. You see? Each step is a link in the chain, a logical jump. But here's the catch, and this is a huge warning for any barrister. Every single one of those links, it's a weak point. It's a potential point of failure. The longer that chain gets, the more inferences you're asking the jury to make, the flimsier your whole argument becomes. And worse, you're just handing your opponent a roadmap of all the places they can attack your case. So that brings us to section 5, strength in numbers. If a single long chain is so weak, how on earth do you build a strong case? Well, the answer is you stop thinking about building a chain. Instead, you weave a rope. You bring together multiple, different strands of evidence that, on their own, might not be much, but together, they all point to the same conclusion. Think about it. One of these things alone, it might not mean much. So he had an opportunity? Okay. So there was evidence of a motive? Maybe. But when you start adding them all up, you've got opportunity and motive and the means to do it, plus we know there was bad blood between them, and he tried to hide the weapon, see? Each one is a separate strand, and when you weave them all together, they create what the courts call a damning complexion. It becomes very, very hard to explain away. And yet, this quote here really hammers that home. Means, motive, and opportunity. That's the classic trio for a reason. If you can establish one or two of them, you're building a pretty persuasive case. But if you can show the jury that your person had all three, well, now your circumstantial case is becoming incredibly powerful. All right, last section. This is our final exam takeaway. And this really gets to the heart of a barrister's duty. It's a principle you need to burn into your brain for your exams, and honestly for your whole career. Here's the thing. Because circumstantial evidence is all about inference, it has a dark side. It's uniquely vulnerable to being faked, to being manufactured, to frame an innocent person. And that's where you come in. Your job, your solemn ethical duty as a barrister, is to tear it apart, to scrutinize it, to test every single link, to question every single inference. And that's true whether you're the one presenting the case or the one defending against it. So, when you're preparing your case, remember what you're really doing. You're asking a jury to go on a journey of logic with you. So you have to ask yourself constantly, is my case a strong woven rope, or is it just a fragile chain waiting to snap? Because getting that answer right, well, that can be the difference between justice being served and a terrible miscarriage.